Something else I found helpful is breast cancer groups on Facebook. I have them also listed in my link tree, the ones that I'm in that I recommend. There are some funky ones out there that I joined and left. Like I've said before, take everything with a grain of salt. What happens to Susie Q is not guaranteed to happen to you. I don't know how many times I was scrolling through the posts just doing research and trying to figure out what I was going to be up against, and I would freak out and be like, babe, this lady, blah, 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 blah. And after like the third or fourth time I had done that, my husband was like, babe, just because it happened to her doesn't mean it's guaranteed to happen to you. And I was like, that is very true. And I was very fortunate, and I got through all 16 rounds of chemo with no nausea. It is not very common, but it can happen. So just remember, take everything you hear with a grain of salt, because as soon as people find out that you have cancer and you're going to go through chemo or whatever, everybody and their mom is going to have some piece of unnecessary, unsolicited, stupid advice on how to help. And my advice to you is just smile and nod, thank them, and tell them that you will talk to your oncologist about it. You will hear some wild advice. Take it all with a grain of salt. Because I started chemo when I did, it was still technically during the pandemic. I was not offered a chemo class. I guess my center used to have a chemo class before you even started chemo to give you the ins and outs and help you prepare better, but that was not an option when I started. So luckily I had an amazing first nurse. Nurses are heroes on earth. All of my appointments leading up to my first chemo, I always brought my husband or a support person like my parents, and I brought a notebook and I religiously took notes, because there's going to be a lot of information coming at you all at once. I guarantee you're not going to retain it all. You might be smiling and nodding and thinking you can, but you're not. So I brought my notebook, and then towards like the end of chemo, I figured out I could just use my phone and I would record the conversation so that I could play it back later at home and then take my notes, because I'm a note taker. Do what works for you, but it is going to be a lot of information. And then the very first chemo, I brought my notebook again, and my nurse Donna was amazing and gave me all kinds of tips and tricks and explained everything as we went through the process, explained what to expect, how to navigate and deal with these symptoms that come with it all. We all know that hydrating is super important, but especially during chemo. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. So I sip water throughout the day. I probably go through 4, sometimes 5 of these a day. Hydration is vital during chemo. And what I would do is make sure the day before chemo, I would do what I needed to do around the house, and I would really try hard to hydrate. And if just drinking plain water is hard for you, I would also use the Gatorade or Propel packets and just mix it into my water or into a disposable water bottle, and that really encouraged me to drink. And then the day of chemo, continue to hydrate and flush your system, and just continue that pattern as best as you can. You can also ask the nurses for extra hydration, and I knew that I was going to be dehydrated, so I would ask the nurse for extra hydration. You can actually go back into your cancer center just for hydration, and it can make the biggest difference. So keep that in mind. For me, days 2 through 5 were always the hardest. Fatigue was my biggest side effect from chemo. There were days I literally did not have the energy to talk. I would be talking to my husband or kids, and my voice would get quieter and quieter and quieter until I was down to a whisper, and my hubby knew it was nap time. It's hard. Chemo is hard, and chemo sucks, but you are stronger than you realize, and you're going to get through it, and it's not going to last forever. It may feel like it in the moment when you're in the trenches of chemo, but it's not going to last forever. Things are going to change. You're going to come out the other side. Just focus on the there and now. So after days 2 through 5 is when I usually started to feel better, and I would feel more like myself, and I would get some energy back. And that's when I would do my nesting before my next chemo, and I would catch up on some stuff. This is something that a lot of us moms deal with. Listen to your body and rest when needed. There's no trophy for pushing yourself and doing more than you really should be doing. I understand there are times where you have no other choice, especially if you have littles. But if your kids are older, or you have family around, or even friends that are willing to support you and come load the dishwasher, vacuum, whatever else, please take them up on it. Don't be an independent woman. I've touched on this before. Okay, I'm going to preface this with my family was great. I am grateful that my kids are teenagers now, and I didn't have littles when I was going through chemo, and I have a supportive and loving husband. With that said, things that are bothering you, they have no clue. They are oblivious. It's not that they don't care. It just doesn't bother them. So that sink full of dishes that is driving you crazy every time you look at it, it doesn't matter to them. They don't care. It doesn't bother them. The laundry on the couch that needs to be folded and put away, it doesn't bother them. They're oblivious. If those things are bothering you and you have help available, advocate, speak up, ask nicely, hey, would you mind please loading the dishwasher? So on and so forth. That is something I had to learn the hard way.